Hello again, everybody. And I honestly, when I set out to do this review, I didn't think I'd have a lot to say about this particular episode. Not because it's a bad episode or anything. A lot of people actually really like this episode a lot, and it is a penultimate episode of season 2. It's just that this is the most the episode that spends the most time with only one storyline going on. I mean, there's different parts of the storyline, but it's all one storyline, and it basically all takes place in one location with one set of characters. And I didn't think there'd be much to say about it just because of the format of the episode itself, but I came up with 5 pages of notes for this and over 400 screen caps. So, I don't know if I'm going to stick to all those notes or not. But, yeah, I didn't think that I'd have that much to say about this episode just because there isn't that many different separate plot lines going on. But, like I said, I got a lot of notes, so we'll see exactly how it goes here. Anyway, as I said, this is the penultimate episode of Season 2. And we know what happened in the 9th episode of Season 1, Bye Bye Ned. Now, this episode, I don't think had quite the same kind of effect as that episode just because it was so shocking. But as I said, a lot of people really like this episode as well. I don't really have a problem with this episode or anything. I tend to be more interested in the episodes where they do cover a lot of different stories. I mean, this one's fine. It's good. I don't really have a problem with it. It seems to me like I'm more interested in episodes where you get to see a lot of different characters and a lot of different plot lines, which is probably why I like this show so much. But anyway, it is the 9th episode of Season 2. It is called Blackwater, and let's get right into it right now. This episode was actually, I believe, written by George R. R. Martin, too. He does write one episode a season, although I don't think he's doing that next season because he's trying to work on the 6th book. But anyway, basically we start with the Stannis' troops arriving in Blackwater Bay, which is right outside King's Landing, the capital. And we just get a little bit of, also Stannis and Davos are on separate ships as well. But Davos is on the same ship as his son Mathos. And we just had a little quick conversation here between the two of them, where you can see that his son Mathos is wholeheartedly behind Stannis and this Lord of Light thing and thinks that there's no possibility they could ever lose because he's basically a religious zealot who's totally into all the stuff that Melisandre is spewing, and Davos is a little bit more of a realist who is a bit skeptical of their chances, despite the fact that they do outnumber the people in King's Landing. He's just a little bit skeptical. And then we go inside. That's what a lot of this episode does. We see outside, then we see inside, then we see outside, then we see inside. But it's all the same location and the same event happening. But this is Tyrion with a bit of insomnia, not able to sleep before the big fight because he knows that they're kind of screwed. They didn't really have much of a plan other than the one that he just hinted at in the last episode with them mentioning that Wildfire is going to have some part in this battle, which we will all see, and I'm sure you've already seen if you're watching the review. So, anyway, and this is more of Tyrion being afraid and not being very confident about their chances, and Shay being completely oblivious to the fact that anything could go wrong, and thinking that everything's alright, and they have nothing to worry about, and just, yeah. She's saying, that she's not afraid, and Tyrion's voicing the opposite opinion. He is afraid, and I guess some people could say she's putting on a brave face for him, but this also goes back to the last episode where he warned her that they were in danger, and she's like, oh, I don't care, I'm not afraid, and it's more of her repeating that. But I'll comment on that later, because she has a bit of a different kind of behavior in another scene. But anyway, and then we go up to Cersei and Pycelle. And Cersei's getting her poison on. She's asked Pycelle to give her essence of nightshade, and you can see that Pycelle is a little concerned about this particular request of Cersei's, but being the doormat that he is, and being the Lannister butt kisser that he is, he tries to tiptoe around saying, okay, well, you do realize this is a poison and it's dangerous, and of course he won't actually openly tell her, poison's a bad thing, what do you want with it? Because, like I said, he's a crotchety old butt kisser. So, and of course, Cersei is way more intimidating than Pycelle. Not just because she's the queen, she's just, yeah, if you don't stand up to her, she will walk all over you. I think Sansa is another example of that, as we've seen. And that's why Cersei has such a problem with Tyrion, because he's one of the only ones that do stand up to her. But anyway, basically she's getting this poison called Essence of Nightshade from Pycelle, and we're left to wonder, okay, is she going to try to poison Tyrion? Is that what's going on? Because we know that she's not thrilled with Tyrion, and she, took Raz prisoner, thinking of a Shay in the last episode and everything, to get even with Tyrion for having Joffrey out on the battlefield. But, we just get a little bit of background on Nightshade and seeing how Cersei's not listening to any of Pycelle's very weak warnings or attempted warnings, because he doesn't even get that far. But the important thing is that he says that, 1 drop is to soothe your nerves, 3 drops is a dreamless sleep, but 10 drops, and she's like, oh, I know what 10 drops does, you can leave now. So, she's not hearing any of what he has to say. She's pretty much set on her path, with whatever that path may be, which of course we don't know at this point in time either. And then we go into this scene. Now, I try not to put too many of the more risque scenes in the screen caps, just because I'm not sure who's watching it and if somebody's going to have an issue with it. But I mean, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you should be used to that. But it's kind of hard, because I'd have to cut out almost all the screen caps if I try to cut out most of the risque stuff that happens. But anyway, this is just a little pre-drink in the bar with Bronn and the prostitutes, and they're singing. This is, I think, our first time we hear The Rains of Castamere, which is the song about the Lannisters completely wiping out a bloodline just because they didn't know their place, so to speak, and they were trying to, make themselves a higher position in the world than the Lannisters, and Tywin basically killed every single man, woman, and child in the family, just to tell them, oh, guess what, you're not going to take our place, we're always going to be the richest, the most powerful, and now your bloodline no longer exists because you dared to question us. And that's what The Rains of Castamere is about, and this is the first time we hear that song. But it actually becomes a very, very important song throughout the series, and it will crop up a lot, specifically in Season 3 and 4. Of course, obviously, since this is almost the end of Season 2, but, yeah, it's The Rains of Castamere. It's a Lannister theme song about, him wiping out an entire family just because they dared to try to take a little bit of power back from the Lannisters. And basically, it's just this scene is, getting drunk, whoring before the battle, because a lot of men think, hey, this could be our last battle, we might die. And Bronn's, joking it up and being the little partier that he is, even though he's a really good soldier, he's kind of a partier too. You get that from this point, I'm pretty sure, if you didn't already know it. And then the Hound comes in, and you can see there's some animosity, to put it mildly, between the Hound and Bronn. And I don't know if it's I don't know if it's their relationship doesn't seem to warrant this much animosity, honestly, but I guess what we're getting here is the Hound serves Joffrey and Bronn serves Tyrion, and even though they're both Lannisters, although Joffrey is claiming to be a Baratheon, but anyway, even though they're both on the Lannister side, it's the two Lannisters that don't really get along at all, because Tyrion's always trying to put Joffrey in his place, and Hound has to put up with, Joffrey reacting to the way Tyrion treats him. So obviously the Hound doesn't like Tyrion because he makes his life tougher, and he doesn't like Bronn by extension because Bronn is Tyrion's right-hand man, and he knows that if it came down to a fight between him and Bronn, it would be an interesting fight, and it might very well come down to that if Joffrey and Tyrion continue to beat each other's throats like they are. But I think that's just basically what we're getting from this. The two people that they serve really hate each other, and that's just extending into these two's relationship as well, and we just see a little bit of that. And we get the comment where I think it's Bronn that says, "Oh, you're just like me," or the Hound says that Bronn's just like him, or something like that. But but he says, "Oh, but you're smaller," or the Hound says, "You're smaller," and Bronn adds, "and quicker." So, and they almost get into it here. They almost get into a throwdown fight because, alcohol, nerves, and the fact that they're two masters, so to speak, really don't like each other either. And they're both the same type of personality, although Bronn definitely has shown his sense of humor a bit more than the Hound has. Yes, we're going to see more of the Hound later, but still. They're basically the same type of people here, both, I guess, the same personality type, so to speak. And they're just butting heads because of that. But of course, when they almost get into this fight here, then they get saved by the bells, because the war bells start ringing and interrupts them before they're about to go at it with each other. And then, of course, Bronn's like, "One more drink?" Just because Bronn always lighthearted, and the Hound is anything but lighthearted most of the time. But, I mean, they're the same type of people, they just approach things very differently, at least at this point in time. And then we get to this scene with Podrick is getting Tyrion into his armor, and Varys is there. And the scene starts out with something that's really funny once you've seen the other seasons. But Varys says that he has always hated the bells and that they bring for horror, a dead king or a city under siege. And Tyrion chimes in, "or a wedding." And if you haven't seen the later seasons, you don't get exactly how hilarious that joke is. But but if you have, you know. And so that's just another thing where they refer to other seasons, and sometimes you don't even realize it until after you've seen those other seasons. You're like, "Oh yeah." But and then Varys pulls this thing where he's acting like he doesn't know who Pod is, and Tyrion's like, "Yeah, right, every boy in the city." And Varys is playing on this, and like, "I don't know what you mean." And Tyrion's like, "Oh, you know what I mean," because everybody's always implying that Varys is into little boys, and that everybody just says that, but there's really been no evidence for it, honestly, and we get later the deal with that. But Varys asks Tyrion if he trusts Pod, and he says, "Oh, oddly enough, I do." So then Varys whips out his map, and a lot of people seem to forget about this as well, because this crops up again in season 4. Varys showed Tyrion these maps of the tunnels that the Targaryens built under the Red Keep, and he says that there's 50 miles of tunnels that are underneath the Red Keep, and the second Targaryen king, I believe, Maegor the Cruel, is the one who built those tunnels. It was either him or Aegon the Unworthy. I did listen to the whole Targaryen history thing in A World of Ice and Fire, but those two kings were very similar, Maegor the Cruel and Aegon the Unworthy. But anyway, I think it was Maegor the Cruel that built all the tunnels. I honestly do, but I'm not positive. And there's all these tunnels underneath the Red Keep, and people seem to forget about that when we see a character in those tunnels in season 4. They're like, how did they know about that? Well, this is where those tunnels are revealed back in season 2. But anyway, basically, Varys is giving Tyrion an out if it's needed, and Tyrion says that he's not going to run away, and he's not going to leave, and he's the captain of the ship, and he's not going to leave or abandon his ship. And Varys says I'm sure lots of captains say that before the ship is sinking. So nobody really has a lot of confidence in their ability to win here. And then Varys brings the conversation around to Melisandre and how she's a priestess with dark powers, and that Stannis is under the influence of these dark powers, and he says that that Tyrion doesn't seem to believe in those. And of course, like I said, as smart as Tyrion is, that's one of his fatal flaws, that he does not believe in the supernatural stuff like most of them don't. But obviously here we get that Varys does, and he says he can think of nothing worse than to have somebody on the throne who is in service to the kind of powers that Melisandre has, and to be swayed by her, and that he thinks that is a horrible idea, and he really does not want Stannis in charge. And he's trying to convince Tyrion of that, and we get that Varys has seen some of the supernatural stuff in his past. We don't get the whole story here, but you get that he's seen it, he believes it, and it's somehow related to what has happened to Varys to make him a eunuch. And so you get again that Varys he's got a bit more of a backstory than we've heard yet. And this is just little hints of it. And we will get Varys' backstory, just not yet. And so then Varys says, that he thinks Tyrion's their only hope to survive this fight. So, also there's some interesting things that, like, some of the things Varys says in that scene, he chooses his words very carefully. He says, tonight, he believes Tyrion is the only man who can stop Stannis. So he puts emphasis on tonight and man. Keep that in mind, because we're getting more hints about where Varys' true loyalties lie. And we got big hints in season 1. So keep that in mind. And then we go back to the boats, and the Seaworths hear the bells, and Mathis thinks and says, oh, they're welcoming the new king. And Davos is like, I don't think so. Bells don't generally mean surrender. And then they start playing their war drums to signal the beginning of the attack. And so Tyrion's on his way out after this whole, the attack is starting, the battle is starting, and Stannis looking all smug like he thinks he's going to win. And I can say that because if you haven't watched this whole episode and you're watching the review, you're strange, and I'm not catering to you. I'm only talking to people who watch this, because those are the only people that make sense to be watching the episode and then the review. But anyway, so Tyrion is leaving because the attack is starting, and he's nervously giving Bronn all these last-minute commands, and he's all, obviously his stress is showing. Bronn's all chill. He doesn't care. He's just like, whatever, it's another fight. And Bronn's always cool. And he gives him an axe, and he said, do you know how to use that? And Tyrion says something about, I watched Jaime chop wood once. And Bronn says, well, I watched you kill a man with a shield. You'll be unstoppable with an axe. So it's another callback to when Catelyn had him prisoner along the road to the Eyrie. And then they say, don't get killed, my friend. And they have this cute little exchange where it's like, oh, we're friends now. And Tyrion says, well, just because I pay you doesn't diminish our friendship. And Bronn says, it enhances it, really. And Tyrion's like, oh, fancy words. And Bronn's like, well, I've been hanging out with fancy folks. And it's a really cute, funny exchange, like most of their exchanges are. And then Tyrion walks down, and Shae and Sansa, well, at least Sansa, has been summoned to bid Joffrey farewell. And Tyrion fakes like he doesn't know who Shae is to, uphold their cover. And there's also a mention here of Maegor's Holdfast, and that's where the women are supposed to go. And Maegor's Holdfast is the strongest, safest part of the castle, where the women are getting sent for when the city gets attacked. And there's kind of a story behind what that was used for in the past. There was one really psychotically religious Targaryen king who locked his sisters in there so he wouldn't be tempted to sleep with them. Yeah, that was Baelor the Blessed. He was an interesting one. See, it's like, yeah, it's bad to be an evil king, but it's also bad to try to go too much in the other direction, because Targaryens have had equal amounts of good kings and kind of wacko kings. If over 300 years, you get both sides. And I think that's actually been referred to in an earlier episode, where every time the Targaryens have a child, the gods flip a coin, whether they're going to be insane or they're going to be good. And that was a reference to Cersei's and her incest kids, and Tyrion telling her, oh, 2 of them are okay. But anyway, this is just Joffrey telling, or having Sansa come bid him farewell, and Tyrion and Shae have a very short, quiet exchange when they say goodbye, but they don't want to bring attention again. And so Joffrey has called Sansa to kiss his blade to wish him goodbye. And Sansa told Tyrion that Joffrey called for her, and Tyrion has another cute line, oh, he's been a great romantic, my nephew. But anyway, he tells Sansa to kiss his blade, and that she can kiss it later, his blade, Heart Eater, and lick Stannis' blood off of it. And then Sansa does her little passive-aggressive coward-shaming thing here. And she's like, oh, are you going to kill Stannis yourself? and he's like, well, if he's stupid enough to come near me, yeah, sure, playing the badass again. And she's like, oh, so you're going to be in the vanguard. She's getting her hopes up that maybe Joffrey's going to get killed during this battle. And he's like, I'm not going to discuss anything with you, because he doesn't want to admit that he's a big old coward. And she's like, well, of course you're going to be in the vanguard. That's where my brother always goes, and, he's just a pretender. So she's doing a very passive-aggressive coward-shaming thing here. It's almost a moment where I could kind of stand Sansa. Kind of. She has very few of those. Very, very few. But when she gets all passive-aggressive and insults Joffrey in a way that he's too stupid to figure out, because even Sansa is smarter than him, which is saying a lot. And then again, I guess Sansa's parents weren't brother and sister. But anyway, moving on. So, basically it's just Joffrey getting bid farewell by Sansa, and then there's a little thing after he walks out where Shae says that some of the boys won't ever come back. And Sansa says, oh, Joffrey will, the worst ones always do. And then Shae shushes her. Like, oh, don't say that. Like, oh, all of a sudden you're afraid now, Shae? Weren't you the one in, 2 scenes ago saying, oh, I'm not afraid of anything? But anyway, yeah, Shae's got a bit of a split personality thing going on in the show. Mainly because she's very different in the show than in the book. But anyway, then we go outside to the start of the battle, and Joff is completely clueless about Tyrion's plan. And they do this little thing where Joffrey says, Hound, tell Tyrion this, and Tyrion's like, Lancel, tell the Hound to tell Joffrey this, because Joffrey's flipping out, because he doesn't know what the plan is, and he doesn't see anything that he thinks should be going on, because he has no clue, and he hasn't had any part of the planning, and he doesn't know what's going on, because Tyrion's the one done all the planning. But anyway, basically, Tyrion's like, you need to shut up and let me do this, because if you're going to sit here and threaten me, and stuff like that, I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do, and we're all going to be screwed, and we're all going to have, our heads on spikes, and then he has that cute line, as amusing as it would be to see your head on a spike, mine would be there too, so let's not do that. So yeah, see, it's like, even though most of the episode is a big, huge battle, they managed to slip enough funny dialogue and interactions in to still keep it interesting. And I think that's why I had more to say than I thought I would. Because when I, look back at this, it's like, oh, it's a big battle. But then when you actually get into it and start dissecting it, there's a lot of little interactions that are actually pretty amusing. And you get to see a lot of little smart-ass comments by the characters, and it's kind of fun. But anyway, fun for a battle, but I know. Still. Basically, that's just showing that Tyrion's really the one in charge, Joffrey has no clue, and Joffrey needs to shut up and let Tyrion do what he needs to do. And then they flip back to the boats, and they've noticed now that there's only one ship. That's another thing that Joffrey was having a fit about. Why is there only one ship? Tyrion has a plan. Shut your mouth, Joffrey. But yeah, Davos is also getting suspicious of the fact that there's only one ship, and he thinks something's a little strange about that. And Mathos is like, oh, well, we surprised them. And Davos has a good line here. He's like, Varys knows what you had for breakfast 3 days ago. We didn't surprise them. Something's up. And then we go back into Tyrion and Tommen. And please, people, stop calling him Tommen. It's Tommen. 2 M's. Thank you. Anyway, Tommen. But yeah, Cersei taking Tommen into the holdfast where all the women are. And this is where, and Cersei's got an armored dress on. I thought that was just too cool. I love that armored dress. But, Sansa is saying to Shae, well, I don't know why Cersei wants me here. She hates me. And Shae's like, well, maybe she hates you less than everybody else. And this is the scene where we're eventually going to get to what I like to call the alcoholic Cersei truth train. And it is so funny. The things Cersei says to Sansa throughout the progression of this scene. Hilarious. Top-notch Cersei. Sansa just being shocked by every word out of Cersei's mouth is just too funny. But, Sansa basically asks Cersei why Olin Payne's there. He's the executioner. And Cersei, writes off, oh, he's here to defend us. But, of course, we hear later why he's really there. And she talks about how there's going to be thieves because we're under siege, and we're going to put their heads on spikes because they come in and say some people have stolen, and she's like, I'll put their heads on spikes. And she tells Sansa, the only way to make the small folk loyal is to make sure they fear you more than their enemy. And she says, you need to remember that if you ever hope to become queen. So it's interesting advice. So you definitely see Cersei's take on being queen. Because, I think it was Viserys earlier that said that you need either love or fear to rule. And we obviously see which method Cersei uses, because nobody loves her. The whole kingdom hates the royal family, or at least Cersei. So anyway, this is just the beginning of that, and, Cersei drinking more and more and more. And a lot of people said they have a problem with that because they made Cersei into such a drunk as the series progressed. She started drinking more and more. But that's kind of part of her arc. She's losing her mind, people, and the alcohol is just the beginning of that. But anyway, then we go back outside. Lancel! That's Lancel. And this is the last time you see Lancel for a long time. Which annoys me, because I said earlier, I really like the actor that plays Lancel. But anyway, yeah, he disappears for a long time after this, which is odd, because we don't see him dying or anything. But anyway, moving on. They're back outside. One ship has appeared, and Stannis is, still looking all smug. And Joff still is too dumb to stop doubting Tyrion's plan. And this is interesting, too, because we see Davos actually being in a role of command here, which is odd, because we almost always see Davos, as the second in charge, the follower, the one who's just going along with what Stannis says, instead of actually commanding things. And you see that Davos is actually pretty good at commanding things for the most part. And I like to see more of that, honestly, because I like Davos way better than Stannis. But anyway, this is where they notice that the ship's empty, and Davos is worried, and so Davos is one of the first ones to figure out that something is a little bit strange here. And this is still Joffrey questioning, why is there only one ship, blah blah blah. And we go and we start to see more of the plan that's about to take place. And basically what happens in this scene is I'm waiting for the caps to get to it. But if you watched the episode, which I hope you have, So, and we also see a little quick glance of Pyromancer Helene coming up here and a couple caps. And if you forgot about the wildfire stuff, this might be a little bit of a reminder that, oh, why is the Pyromancer here? The guy that makes all the wildfire. And he's also the guy that does all the narratives for the audiobooks, right, Idris? But anyway, so yeah, why is he there? Oh yeah, wildfire! We mentioned that in another couple episodes, didn't we? But anyway, then we start to see what the plan actually is, why there's only one ship, because that ship is full of wildfire, which we see finally coming out of the ship. And it's supposed to be, burns hotter than any other substance except dragonfire. And it's what, the Targaryens used after the dragons all died in the Dance with the Dragons. Dance of the Dragons. Dance with the Dragons is the 5th book. Dance of the Dragons was the Targaryen Civil War that killed all the dragons. But anyway, moving on. So then they have started their major plan here, where all the wildfire pours out into the ocean, and Tyrion gives the signal. And then Bronn, he's the point man here, who's watching for that signal, and he shoots a flaming arrow out in the general direction of where all that wildfire just poured into the ocean around Stannis' fleet. And fun ensues. Things go boom and get all bright and fiery and green. And I think that's one of the cooler effects in this episode, that it's not just fire. The fire's green, and I thought that looked really cool the first time I saw it. I'm like, dude, it's green. But I guess that's what, denotes it from regular fire as being wildfire. And also in the books, each of the dragons breathe a different color of fire that matches the color of the dragon. They didn't do that, I don't think, on the show, because they had enough issues with doing the special effects for the dragons, Lil and Dad more layers on top of it, I think. But yeah, in the books, each dragon's fire matches the color of the dragon. And so I think that's kind of a little bit of a nod to that as well, because wildfire was the replacement for dragonfire, so obviously it's not going to be like just colored like normal fire. But anyway, I've got a lot of caps here because a lot of the caps look really cool when things are all blowing up and exploding, and everybody's reactions, and you can see just the destruction that is happening here because of this plan, this one little boat. And Tyrion giving a signal and Bronn shooting an arrow, and lots of crap happens just because of those 3 little steps. And, see now, I am... This is another reason why I didn't think I'd have a lot to say in this episode, because, oh look, Pyromancer Helene's looking thrilled. Yeah, he's a little bit of a pyromaniac, I think. But anyway, Hound does not look happy. If you don't remember why, you need to go rewatch season 1. Hound really has a big problem with fire because of childhood trauma and such, which we're going to see more of later, but remember that. It's the story that Peter told about what happened with the Hound and his brother burning him and all that. So he really has an issue with fire. But what I was saying is that I didn't think I'd have a lot to say about this because I'm one of those strange people where most battle scenes in anything, I'm not talking about this one, I mean in any thing. If it's a big battle or a war scene, I'm one of the few people that are just like, is this over yet? Can we get back to the story? Usually battle scenes kind of bore me, because most of them are like same old, and I just want to get back to the story and the plot. So that's why I didn't think I'd have a lot to say about this episode, but they throw enough dialogue and interactions into it that it's not just like an hour-long fight. Because if it was just that, and you just saw Stannis arriving, the ship's going boom, the guys fighting, then the show's over, I would be like, wow, that was the most boring episode ever. But, I know, I'm probably the only person who thinks that way, but I'm more interested in character interactions than a big fight. I mean, the battle looks cool and has a reason and everything, and most people say they want to see more battles in the show. And I'm just like, no, I want to see more story. Yeah, show the battle for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes even, but then get back to the story. So I'm just one of the few people that really doesn't care that much about battle scenes. I mean, I know they're important, I know they have a place, and they know they have a purpose, but I find the parts that are just characters interacting to be a lot more interesting than just big, huge, epic battle scenes. But, like I said, this episode did it really well, in that they broke up the battle with enough other stuff that it kept me interested. Me, as in a person who's not that interested in big battle scenes. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about this episode. I do like this episode. It's just I didn't think I would like it if it was just all the battle. I don't think that would have been a good episode. But the way they did it, with enough battle and enough other stuff, it kept me engaged in the story. Because if it was just a whole hour of fighting, I'd be like, is it over yet? Because I want to get back to the stuff that I find more interesting. I'm more interested in the way the characters interact and everything than just things getting blown up and people getting chopped up. I mean, I don't have a problem with gore in any way. I mean, I was a theater major. I usually laugh at gore. I think horror movies are funnier than comedies. But it's just, I'm more interested in character interactions. And you'll probably see that in the way I write, too, if anybody cares about my books. But I'm not here to talk about this. I'm here to talk about this. Now, this is after the whole everything goes boom. And Stannis, he doesn't look very shaken by it. I mean, he's like, interesting. And then he's immediately like, oh, well, the dwarf can only play his little trick once. And then he's like, okay, fine. Let's go on land. We'll do it that way. We don't have to worry about that anymore. He's done that. That was his big gun. Now we'll just go kill them all because he's done with his big plan. So now we'll just take out the rest of them. So Stannis is still being pretty confident, even though half his ships just got blown up. And it's a little different in the book, too. Stannis doesn't ever go on land. He just stays on his ship and gives orders. But anyway. Yeah. I guess they're trying to give him his moment in the sun, because Stannis hasn't done F all for most of the series. But Anyway, so we go back inside to the ladies, and really quick, Cap went past at her second ever appearance of Dantos, the fool that Sansa saved. He's got a bigger role in the book, but he still gets to the same place in the end. Anyway, so Cersei's getting even drunker. Sansa's praying, and Cersei's like, "What are you doing?" And Sansa says that she's praying to the god to have mercy on all of us. And Cersei's like, "Oh, really, all of us, even me?" You can tell she's getting drunker, and her self-censoring is going away a little bit, a lot. But yeah, she's like, "Of course you." And she's like, "Oh, even Joffrey, huh?" And Sansa's like, she's thrown for a little while. She's like, "Well, yes, Joffrey is mine." And Cersei just interrupts her. She's like, "Shut up, you little fool." I love that. I think that was the audience saying, we're really sick of hearing Sansa talk about how Joffrey's love for life. And apparently Cersei's sick of it too. And she's like, "Shut up. Don't even give me that line again." And I love that. I mean, a lot of people have an issue with Cersei. I mean, yeah, she's evil. She's bad. She's not a nice person. But I love watching her. And a lot of people have issues with her, and they have a lot of issues with Lena. And I'm just like, I think that Cersei is one of the best acted characters on the show. And I know a lot of people have issues with her, and I don't know why. I mean, yes, she's evil. I hate her character. But I think Lena does her really well. And that every Cersei scene always... I think I enjoy just about every scene that Cersei's ever been in. And there's a lot of characters like that, because just the way she does it, I love how she plays the role of Cersei. And yeah, she's a lot, and not a lot, but I guess she's different in the book. But in the book, she's just doesn't have anything about her in the book that makes you care about her. And in the show, I seem to care more about Cersei than I do in the book, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I know a lot of people got issues with Cersei, and they got issues with Lena, but I love the way Lena plays Cersei, so whatever. Anyway, so yeah, she's just talking about how, that she only called the women in there because it was expected of her, and that, that it'll be expected of Sansa if she ever becomes queen. And I like how she keeps saying that if now. She's not quite on the Sansa train anymore, even though she's, they're still engaged and all, but yeah. But anyway, and they have a little discussion back at the beginning with the praying about, oh, well, the gods have no mercy, that's why they're gods. And Sansa's, of course, shocked by that. Sansa gets shocked by everything that Cersei says here. And then we get a little bit of penis envy from Cersei. She's talking about how she should have been born a man, and when her and Jaime were little, nobody could even tell them apart, but then they were raised completely differently, and she was taught to be all sweet and nice and polite, and Jaime was taught how to fight, and he was the heir, and she was sold to some man, like a horse to be ridden. And Sansa's like, oh, well, you're his queen. And she's like, and you'll be Joffrey's. Enjoy. It's another great Cersei line, too. Oh, I like that. And she then gives Sansa a little lesson about, if it was anybody but Stannis, she could go seduce them and save them. But it's Stannis, and that won't work with him. And Sansa's like, oh my god, no, really? You didn't just say that, did you? And then she goes into her whole, a woman's only weapon isn't tears, the best one's between your legs, learn how to use it. And as Sansa moves on, I think she's going to remember what Cersei said to her. I mean, that's just a theory I have from what I've heard about, upcoming things. But anyway, I don't know, it's not happened yet, but yeah. So, and then of course she tells her that, when the city falls, they're all going to get raped, and that, I think, is that the part where she told her the truth about Ellen? I don't know. But basically, that's just the beginning of the Cersei truth train. The alcoholic Cersei truth train. And then we go back outside, and the ground battle begins. But yeah, at the end of that little scene, then Sansa took a drink. She was kind of just sipping, but after Cersei's like, oh, everybody's going to want to rape you because you're so pretty. And Sansa really starts drinking. But we go back outside, and the ground battle's beginning. Joff starts losing his crap, of course. And then they all go out, including Lancel. I just really like Eugene Simon. I don't like Lancel, but I like Eugene Simon. Anyway, and then we get a little more of a reminder of the Hound not liking fire. He tells the head archer guy that if any flaming arrow comes near him, he's going to strangle him with his own guts. Fun. Hound. Sweet nothings. And then, we also see them starting to approach the wall here, and this guy, I didn't get the cap, but he's about to get his head smashed by a boulder. And when you see Stannis next, he's got that guy's blood all over his face, so that's the head mesh scene. Woohoo! Fun stuff, fun stuff! When all spells drop boulders on people's heads, it works, it's nice. Like I said, I don't care about gore, I really don't. I kind of wish that guy had a better aim and hit Stannis, but that's beside the point. And as I said, in the book, Stannis just stayed on the ship and gave orders. I guess they were trying to make him seem like he was more commanderly, more like Robert, and he would go right into the thick of battle, because I guess of what Sansa had said to Joffrey earlier, trying to show that Stannis is very different than Joffrey. Like, we didn't know that. I hate them both, but they're very different. And then, so that's just the beginning of the ground battle. And also Hound has that line about any man who dies with a clean sword, he's gonna rape his corpse. Sweet stuff that the Hound says like that. Lots of rape talk in this episode. And Lancel gets shot with an arrow. Lancel gets shot. That made me unhappy, because at that point I hadn't read the books. I'm like, oh no, are they killing Lancel too? He's cute. But, yeah, he's a jerk, but he's cute. Anyway, then, more of Cersei. Yeah, this is where she talks more about how... Actually, no, let me see here. More fighting the Hound. Okay, yeah. This is just, then she redirects her anger onto Shay. Or not really, she just starts picking at Shay. I guess a liar recognizes a liar, and she's starting to see through Shay's story, and she's like, oh, so you've been here 10 years and you don't even know how to curtsy. Okay, sure, who are you really? And, yeah, she just starts picking apart Shay's cover story, because, like I said, a liar recognizes a liar. And, this is just the beginning of her paranoia here, where she's even suspecting the servant girls at a time like this. She's like, somebody's out to get me all the time. But yes, it's the very, very, very tip of the Cersei paranoia iceberg that we're going to see as the show goes on. Let's see. Then Lancel comes in and interrupts Cersei picking on Shay after he's been shot with the arrow. He's not looking like he's having a good old time. Let's see. So Lancel comes in and he interrupts. Let's see. I think this is the... See, the caps are, like, behind where I'm talking. But, yes, this is the part where Lancel comes in. I just had to check ahead on the caps. But, yeah, Lancel comes in to give them an update about how the battle is now on the ground, and Stannis' men are on the shores, and some of them are getting inside the walls, although his fleet's destroyed, but still. And he wants... he just wants to let them know what's going on. And Cersei orders him to bring Joffrey back inside. And even Lancel's like, seriously? And Lancel's not the brightest bulb in the box either here. Come on. And he's like, you're not serious, are you? And Cersei doesn't care what he has to say. She's just like, yeah, bring him inside. And then this is where Lancel leaves to go do that, even though he really doesn't like the idea. And then she goes back to the part that I was hinting at earlier. I was trying to remember if we were there yet. But when she tells Sansa that Ilyn's not really there to protect them. And the reason he's there is because in the event that this happens, that what Lancel has told her has happened, in an event that Stannis gets through the walls, Ilyn is there to basically kill all of the women. Yeah, that's why he's there. Because she has told him that she would rather have him kill all of these women, have them get raped. Or at least herself, I guess. And it's like almost touching, I guess, that she doesn't want the women to go through that, and her response is to have them killed instead. Okay, but it's Cersei. Anyway, I mean, yeah, I've always said that, I always thought rape was worse than murder, and that rapists should get punished worse than murderers, but I know most people don't agree with that opinion. But anyway, then we go back outside, and some flaming dude and I mean flaming as in actually on fire. Some flaming dude. We're not talking about Loris or Renly. We're talking about some flaming dude. I like Loris and Renly. Don't hate. I love those two guys. I miss Renly. But anyway, some flaming dude is coming at the Hound and about to attack him, and the Hound's flipped because fire bad. Fire bad. Don't like. And then Bronn shoots the guy and saves the Hound from being set on fire or set upon by a guy who's on fire. And at that point, the Hound's just like, enough of this crap. I'm done. The Hound is just done. He's a bit displeased with men running towards him on fire, and his bestie Bronn has saved him, but his PTSD has kicked in at this point, fully kicked in, and he has a drink, and Tyrion's like, what are you doing over here? What are you doing drinking? You want some iced milk and some raspberries? Let's go! And the Hound doesn't even listen. Stannis is climbing up the wall, and the Hound is like, screw this all, and he's having a drink, and the river's on fire, he says, and that he's lost half his men, and Joff commands him to go back to fighting, which Tyrion is telling him also, and the Hound's just like, the famous Hound line. I try not to swear that much in these, but you gotta. This is like one of the best Hound lines ever, and this is where he says, fuck the Kingsguard, fuck the city, fuck the king, and just walks out. It's like the time everybody in the world fell in love with the Hound. It's like, yeah, that's exactly right, you tell him. So yeah, that's the Hound retiring. He's like, nope, enough, I'm done, I'm out of here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's because of the fire, and because they're losing, and he's gonna die, and he's had enough, and he doesn't like Joffrey anyway, so why is he trying to kill himself to save Joffrey's stupid butt? He doesn't even like King's Landing. He's like, yeah, screw it all, I'm out, I'm done, none of you are worth it, I'm so gone. And that's where everybody, I think, really started liking the Hound, is when he did his little retirement speech so eloquently. But anyway, and of course, Joffrey's all pouty now because he lost his dog, his bodyguard. And then we get more beachcombers and their canoe / shield wall / battering ram thing that they got going on. And they're obviously getting through the walls. They're getting in. Guess what? King's Landing is losing. Wildfire be damned, they're losing. And that's when Lancel comes out to follow Cersei's orders. You know, his sweet, loving girlfriend, Cersei. Yes, that's right, they're sleeping together. Did you guys forget about that? But anyway, Cersei's sleeping with a lot of people in the book, but Lancel's one of them. Her cousin, Lancel. But anyway, he comes out, and he's telling Joffrey that the Queen has ordered him to bring him back inside, but you can tell Lancel's, like, not really up for that idea. And Tyrion's like, you can't go inside, you need to be out here, you're the king. And Joffrey's like, well, what would you have me do? And Tyrion's like, lead? Just lead. But of course Joff runs away with his tail between his legs. He was just waiting for an excuse, and now he got one. So he's out of there. Took how many minutes for Joffrey to run away? Like the little coward that he is? I wasn't timing it, but I bet it wasn't many. Anyway, and Sansa was right. Joffrey didn't get killed because he ran away. Big bad Joffrey. So then Tyrion decides to lead since Joffrey is taken off. And Joffrey's about to take off. Like I said, the caps are kind of where they're supposed to be. But anyway, Joffrey's taken off, and Tyrion finally decides that he's going to have to be the one that leads the fight. This is Tyrion's next shining moment. Yes, Tyrion is George R. R. Martin's favorite character. Like you couldn't tell by now, right? Come on. Anyway, then Tyrion gives his big, long speech after he decides he's going to lead the attack. And, the whole, these are brave men coming to kill us, and they're going to take your city and your women and rape them, and let's just go kill them. And, then, he decides that they're going to use those tunnels that everybody conveniently forgot about before Season 4, those tunnels to come in behind Stannis' army and attack them that way. So, that's how they're going to try to get the upper hand again. And he also has that line where he's like, and don't fight for this, don't fight for that. And he says, don't fight for riches because you won't get any. Yeah. So, he's just like, yeah, let's just go kill them. They can't take our city away from us. Let's do it. So, Tyrion finally gets a moment to be a leader, and it's in a battle, the last place you'd think you'd see Tyrion leading. Although in the book he did have a few more battle scenes than we got in the show, because in that first battle where he just woke up at the end, he actually was in that fight in the book. But anyway, then we go back inside after Tyrion has decided they're gonna keep fighting, and the guys finally, agree to follow him, even though it's Tyrion. They finally go along with it, and we go back inside, and Lancel comes in, and he says that the battle was lost once Joffrey left, and that the men lost all heart, and he wants to take Joffrey back outside, and then Cersei's like, well, why do I care what you want? So, yeah, they're such little lovebirds, aren't they? She really cares about Lancel, right? Yeah, okay. Anyway, then she pushes him down, and that's the last time we see Lancel for a really long time. He is listed in episode 501, though, so I'm hoping we'll see him again. Of course, it's IMDb, so anybody can edit that, who knows. Anyway, but like I said, we didn't see Lancel die. He got hurt, and he got pushed, and then he disappeared for 2 years. But anyway, so then Cersei pushes Lancel and takes off out of the room with Tommen, and Sansa immediately puts on her hostess hat and starts a sing-along camp. And Sophie Turner says that they asked her once what is the scene she's the most nervous about doing, and they thought that she'd say, like, the scene where Meryn ripped off her clothes and hit her or something, or the rape scene, and she said that the scene she was most worried about was the scene where she had to sing one line of a hymn here, which is funny. And then Shae is telling her to run away and hide, which is more split personality from Shae. She's not afraid of anything, but now she's telling Sansa to run for her life, and she's got a knife, and she thinks that Ilyn's going to kill them. She's trying to save Sansa, and I'm like, well, I thought you weren't afraid a second ago, honey, baby. Yeah, Shae's got a little bit of a split personality issue happening. She's not afraid, and then she's afraid, and then she's not, and then she's afraid, and probably because they're trying to play her two different ways, the way she was in the book and the way they planned for her to be, which is different. Anyway, so Sansa's hiding in a room, and now she suddenly likes that doll that her dad gave her, the one that she almost threw in his face before, when she was having her little temper tantrum fit about him killing Lady because her boyfriend told him to. So now she suddenly likes the doll. And, so yeah, hypocrite much, Sansa? Yeah, I know. She misses her daddy. She sees the error of her ways, blah, blah, blah. So, like, Sansa is the one. Anyway, then she turns around, the Hound's there, and, oh my god, he's big and he's ugly. Oh my, she's afraid, oh my. Yeah, because knights aren't big and ugly, they don't rescue you. He tells her that he's leaving, and he's going someplace they ain't burning. And she's like, well, what about the king? And he says that the king can die just fine on his own. Another fun Hound line. Yeah. And he actually offers to take Sansa to Winterfell. But because he's big and ugly and scary, she's like, no, I'll stay here in the middle of the war with my psychotic fiancé and his mom. I don't want to go with you. You're big and ugly and scary. She's still Sansa. That's the point I'm trying to make here. She's still Sansa. Moving on. Anyway, so yeah, she got offered an escape, but because of who the offer was coming from, she didn't take it. And I can just imagine how different this show would have went with, like, the Hound storyline and Sansa's storyline from this point forward if she had actually went with him. It would have been a completely different show, I think. But, like I said, I don't like to spoil anything. I just think it would be completely different if she would have made a different choice here. But anyway, so, and then he gives her this whole, everybody you know is a killer. The world is built by killers, so you better get used to looking at them. And he even says, your father's a killer, your brother's a killer, I'm a killer, Stannis is a killer. Get used to it. Get over your little fairy tale world that you live in. Because another thing that's interesting about the interaction between these two is that, Sansa's got her little fairy tale version of white knights in armor who give flowers to girls and save the weak and blah, blah, blah. And the Hound's idea of knights is his 8-foot-tall brother who is a serial rapist, serial killer, disfigured him when he was a child for playing with a toy, probably killed their father, and their sister, and his 2 ex-wives. Yeah, that's his idea of a night. So they got slightly different ideas. Like I said, the mountain was a little bit worse in the book because we got a lot more of the mountain in the book. I mean, it was all secondhand accounts, but he did some nasty, nasty stuff. Anyway, then we go back to our tunnel ambush. The next leg of the fight begins. And yes, that was kind of a pun, because at the very beginning of that, we saw Tyrion chopping off somebody's leg. But anyway, then more soldiers show up, and Tyrion's like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. And then, in the midst of this big, huge fight that's going on now, that Tyrion's right in the middle of, he turns around and he sees, I want to say it's Mandon Moore or Boros Blount. I forget which one it was in the book, and I think they only say their names once on the show, but it's one of the Kingsguard here that actually turns on Tyrion in the middle of this big fight and tries to kill him. So, that's a different little thing that you probably didn't expect to happen. And another unexpected thing is Podrick comes up behind him and shoves a spear through his head. So, this guy basically smacked Tyrion right in the skull with a sword. And obviously, it doesn't look like it feels good. And, Pod saved him, but Tyrion's already, fallen down at this point. Probably about to lose consciousness. And so, I was a member of the actual Kingsguard that pulled that crap. So now the question is, who was behind that? Was it Cersei? Was it Joffrey? Or was that guy just a jerk? I wonder. So then we go into Cersei's poisony bedtime story. Yes, I got cute little names for all these scenes. So it's Cersei's poisony bedtime story, and she's in the throne room with Tommen, not Tommen. That's what they call him on the show. I'm going to say that's the way you pronounce the name. Thank you. Anyway, like I said, if you don't watch the show and you should know how the other characters pronounce his name. But anyway, it's Tommen. And she's telling him the story about all these nasty beasts in the woods, and all the ones she mentions are sigils of houses that don't like the Lannisters, like wolves and stags. And it's like, stags aren't scary. She's like, yeah, have you seen Stannis? His stag's on fire. Okay, no, she doesn't say that, but yeah. And then she's telling him the story about trying to calm him down because she's thinking they're about to all get killed. And Stannis is outside, and more soldiers show up. Yeah, so more and more and more. And so something's going on outside, and she's in there telling her little happy bedtime story to Tommen about how all the beasts of the forest will bow down to you, and they'll place a crown on your head, and yeah. Like I said, there's so many things that you don't even notice when you first watch it. That when you go back and you rewatch the episode, you're just like, dude, seriously? They've told us so much stuff that's going to happen in future episodes so many times. It's just, it's so funny how much they foreshadow in the show all the time. But anyway, there's the poison, the essence of Nightshade that she's about to feed to her son, which, you know how much Cersei loves her kids. It's her one redeeming quality other than her cheekbones. And when Cersei is about to poison her own child, she thinks things are pretty darn bleak. And Tyrion's losing consciousness outside, and then he sees the other soldiers and doesn't quite understand what's going on here. Because, he's about to pass out and doesn't quite get it, and that's like the side view of what Tyrion's seeing as he passes out. And it almost looks like Tyrion could be dead, which you won't know until the next episode, unless you've already watched the next episode, then you already know, right? But anyway, and back to Cersei trying to poison her kid, and probably herself, I imagine. So, anyway, she's just about to feed Tommen his lovely Nightshade, and she hears the door of the throne room, and they look up. Somebody's come inside. The question is it somebody who's there to kill them? Or somebody else? And then we go back outside, and Stannis getting dragged away by all of his men, conveniently. Not a Stannis fan. But yeah, I'm guessing the reasoning for that is because Stannis wasn't even in the battle in the books. He wasn't even on the land fighting. He was on a ship giving orders. So that's why he conveniently got pulled away at the last minute. And then we find out who's come in. It is Turncoat Loras! Yes, Turncoat Loras and his new best buddy, Tywin Lannister. They're the ones that have come to the rescue. Yay. Yay. It's like, I don't even know who to cheer for. I hate Stannis. I hate the Lannisters. I used to like Loras. Then he did this. But yeah, so yeah, then they come in. The war is won. The battle is over. We won. Yay us. Go us. We live. Lannister's still in charge. We rock. We roll. And all that wonderful, wonderful BS. So yeah, it's like, is that a happy ending? Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. If there was nobody to cheer for. There was nobody to cheer for. I hate the Lannisters. I hate Stannis. But I like Tyrion. It was technically a Lannister. So I guess, yay. It's one of the, you see, this is the wonderful thing about Game of Thrones, is even in a big, huge battle, it's like, are there really any good guys? Are there really people that are all bad guys? It's so hard. This is why the show's so good, because there's a lot of different people in different camps where you can hate some of them and love some of them, and some of them you love and you hate depending on the day. Like I really liked Loras, and then I got really annoyed when he teamed up with the Lannisters. I mean, you get it. You get why, because obviously the Lannisters would have destroyed them if they hadn't, teamed up with them. But still, it's just, yeah. It's like, it's a battle where you don't really want either side to win. You want a couple people from each side to be okay. Like, I want Tyrion to be okay, and I want Davos to be okay, but they're kind of on opposite sides. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. It's like, yay, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but now we still gotta deal with the Lannisters being in charge. And although we all hate them, they at least ain't boring, right? So anyway, that's it for this review, and I will hopefully get the Season 2 finale done sometime soon. Bye all.